Welcome back to MXTV. Now there's plenty of fitness coaches around in the sport of motocross these days, but there's only one that's consistently taken the likes of Ricky Carmichael, James Stewart and more recently Ryan Villopoto to AMA championships, and his name's Aldon Baker. Now Belly got to catch up with him recently to find out a little bit about his trade secrets.
I started as a regular personal trainer, then was in professional cycling for 5 years and learned a lot about cardio training and also nutrition. Out of that, got involved in motorsport and got involved with Ricky as one of my first clients. Basically, it snowballed from there to training with him and then moving into road racing with Nicky Hayden, and then moved on to James, which was also a great experience, great move, and to work with him. And when my contract was up with James, I was approached by Ryan and I kind of liked where he was at. He was coming off an injury, knowing that he had some work ahead of him and had the desire and wanted to prove the point. And I think has a very bright future, a lot of potential, and the up and coming guys from Pro Circuit that I think have big futures, and that's really been my life for the last 10 years. So what I do in the beginning is run a certain amount of tests on each athlete. And from that, I can get the numbers that relate to the training. So we got it rolling quickly. Ryan was very receptive and it just, snowballed, so it's been good. I think the biggest thing with all the athletes that I've dealt with, and especially with a new athlete, is just getting a better structure, covering all the bases from the diet to the training and breaking up the training the right way to the riding and fitting it in right, because it isn't easy. There's ups and downs and seeing where hopefully that I can be the best fit. So it's worked out even better with Kawasaki and obviously just all monster riders. A lot of cardio is needed with the training, so I try and utilize specific equipment, bicycles and mountain bikes. And then Trickster does a fine indoor trainer, which is unique in the way it moves with the upper body and obviously being able to pedal it. And then the rowing machine is another good cardio workout, but also utilizing the upper body with the lower body. And then over and above that, we use dumbbells and ball workouts for core. When I go to the track with the guys, I have a plan set for what they're going to accomplish for the day. And it's based on each guy, where they're at when they're racing, what's going on. And then I direct that at the track, meaning, how many laps, make sure they're accountable, so knowing the lap times. So I can see areas that need to be fixed if needed. But I've also got to be careful in those areas because I've never gone and jumped a triple or done anything, in that department. So, it's one thing telling a guy to go and do something specific, but there are areas where I can see, hey, either the entry's wrong or you're bad on your exit, the middle of the corner's not looking good. There's definitely enough there that I feel I can give feedback for the guy to focus on or work on. But it is a fine line, especially at that high-end level, because you don't want to throw out something like, hey, you can do that, and if the guy says, well, you get on the bike and do it, that could be a problem now, So I think I've got enough respect from the guys where my input, they take it, they utilize it, and can hopefully grow from that. And it depends. If we're doing intensity workouts, then I'm there to push them. And if we're doing normal workouts, I'm actually there to see that they don't get carried away. In fact, sometimes it's hard to back them down a bit because they're all competitive guys. So if you have them all together, I've got to monitor that not one's overdoing or out of their zone, because there is a specific purpose for everything that we do.
For the amateurs out there, what is it that you would suggest for them to start on as a small program now?
Really, you've got to be practical in what you can allocate to training. Some guys, have full-time jobs and they can only ride on the weekend and stuff like that. So the way you've got to look at it is, how much time can I dedicate to training? Any type of cardio is going to help you. And start off with 30 minutes and write down what you did do that day, what you did do the next day, so you get some sort of accountability, get some sort of cardio fitness and some stretching so that your body's more apt to suddenly going wide open and having to hold on and maneuver a bike around. That's, makes it just a little bit easier, and that grows. It for sure has its place. I'm always on the watch for future guys that I feel I can mold and work with. I don't think the plan's for everyone. And especially now, I do feel I'm at a stage where, wanting to open up a facility, which is the next big step in Florida. We want to have a full, at least 2-track supercross facility, a building that has its own gym, workout area, and some accommodation, and with a kitchen to actually teach nutrition. Because I always say there's a lacking in the area of nutrition with motorcycle athletes. And it'll have a separate workshop. We set up all the motorcycles. Someone comes there for at least, for a week or 2 weeks. They can learn a lot about themselves and also a lot when they're leaving about where they could be improving on. And yeah, we're just tying in the little pieces now to get it up and rolling by the end of this year and actually incorporate a few more elite guys that I feel have the ingredients that I could run tests on and hopefully mold for the future.
Yeah, thanks to Aldon there. He really is a fantastic guy and somebody who gets the best out of his riders all the time. Now, hopefully we can help you improve a bit because it's time for another one of Lee's rider tips.
Now in this week's rider tip, we're going to tackle one of the more challenging aspects of riding a dirt bike, but if you get it right, it can be also one of the most rewarding. Now I'm talking about riding in deep sand. Now because it's such an important topic to cover, we're going to be splitting this rider tip into 2 separate segments. Now for this week, we're going to be covering the basics of riding in the sand, following it up with a little bit more of a specific drill on sandy berms. And one of the biggest tips I can give you if you're hoping to become nice and comfortable in the sand is you need to do your time. You need to do hours and hours out in it and you'll become nice and comfortable. Now for me personally, growing up over in Western Australia, being a little sand groper, I definitely did my time in the sand, that's for sure. But today, we're here in Rosebud and what quite possibly has the deepest sand on the whole eastern seaboard of Australia. We're going to go over a couple of basics and what's going to get you a lot more comfortable. Now for those of you out there that haven't ridden the sand before, the first thing that you need to wrap your mind around is that the bike's going to almost seem like it has a mind of its own here in the deep sand. There's no way that you can stop that bike from moving around a little bit. You have to work with the bike, and if you're a little bit of a control freak and want to keep that bike absolutely perfect all the time, it's not going to work like that for you. Now, as a result, the biggest mistake that people make when they first start getting into the sand is they tend to hold on way too tight with their hands and they're trying to control the bike with their upper body, which is just not going to happen. Now it's not possible by gripping really tight with your hands to control what the back of the bike's going to do through the sand. All it's going to achieve is it's going to give you arm pumps straight away and obviously tire you out in the process. Now it's important to remember that if you fully back off your throttle in the sand, it's equivalent to grabbing a handful of front brakes on a hard packed track. And quite often, that'll spit you straight over the handlebars. In the sand, the bike likes to do what it wants. It likes to move around a little bit. And if you fully back off the throttle at any stage, it puts all the weight bias to that thin little front wheel and it tries to tuck and send you over the handlebars. So what I recommend is we need to keep at least a little bit of power on at all times. Keep that throttle nice and smooth, and even when you're approaching braking bumps coming into the corner, we try to keep that little bit of power on to keep those wheels up and on top of those bumps. Now the first couple of times that you attempt to do this, you're going to find that the bike moves around underneath you a little bit. You have to resist the temptation to hold on too tight with your upper body. Don't do this. Whatever you do, we need to use our legs, the lower half of your body, to grip very, very tight on the bike, and that allows you to loosen up that upper body just a little bit. Now that we've got that sorted, we need to discuss our body position. And it's very important that whatever you do, don't hang off the back of the bike like a lot of people recommend you should do in the deep sand. You'll never find any of your favourite top world-class riders hanging off the back in the deep sand. Now what we recommend is a nice central body position, very, very similar to what you would do on the hard pack. We need to grip extremely tight with our legs through the air box, which is basically 2/3 of the way back on the bike. That keeps the main bulk of the motorcycle nice and straight through the sand. With our upper body, we hold on reasonably light with our chin roughly over that crossbar pad, and it gives us a nice balance to the front and the back of the bike. But the biggest trick to not going over the handlebars in the sand is not getting your upper body off the back of the bike, it's keeping that power on. That's what keeps the weight on the back of the motorcycle. As we've already mentioned, there's only one really good way to get good in the sand, and that's to do your time. Stay tuned for part 2 of our sand riding tip. And until then, remember, practice makes perfect.